humanist perspective presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Hello again, folks. I'm your same old host, Harry Greenberger, and today we have a very timely topic that we're going to talk about, and let me tell you who my guests are today. We have Reverend Dr. Paige Brooks, who serves as the senior pastor and lead planter, which you're going to have to explain to me, of Canal Street Church, a Mosaic community, and as president of the Restoration Initiative for Culture and Community. He formerly served full-time as assistant professor of theology and Islamic studies at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and continues to teach there and at other colleges and seminaries. He also serves on the board of Christian Renewal New Orleans, a nonprofit ecumenical organization dedicated to renewing believers and churches in the greater New Orleans area. He earned a PhD in theology at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary and an MTH in missiology, which you will have to explain to me, and Islamic Studies at the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa. He's also completing postdoctoral research at the Free University of Amsterdam. He also served as chaplain in the Army Reserve and served with the 256th Infantry Brigade of the Louisiana National Guard in southern Iraq. So you've been a very busy man at a very young age. And we'll talk about some of those things in your background before we get around to the topic that I brought you here for. Now, also sitting here with us is Sarah Jane Brady, who is the executive director of the Forum for Equality. The Forum for Equality is a Louisiana-based, statewide LGBT civil rights advocacy group that was founded in 1989. The major focus of this group is on the political process, in which it encourages members to participate through reminders of upcoming elections, campaigns, promoting awareness of legislation that affects the LGBT community, and rallies to demonstrate popular support for the LGBT civil rights. The group also works to educate the LGBT community in Louisiana about the issues that affect the community as a whole. The organization is a member of the Equality Federation. Well, before we go farther, just so people will know, LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. Is that correct? All right. Well, now the topic that brings us together today is the current issue of same-sex marriage, which has been legalized in a number of states, not including Louisiana.
Not yet.
But before we talk about those aspects of it and why you should favor or not favor it, I would like my two guests, this is not going to be a debate, to talk about, in Sarah Jane's case, the people that she has met representing them in lawsuits, same-sex couples in New Orleans or Louisiana, and what sort of lifestyles they have, and what sort of people they are, and then we'll let you talk about your generally the social aspect before we talk about the legal side of it. Okay, Sarah Jane, go ahead. Tell us something about same-sex couples that not only have been in the newspaper because of the lawsuits, but whom you got to know.
Well, I mean, you use the word lifestyle, and it's interesting to me because their lifestyle is exactly the same as everybody else's. It's get up, make your grocery list, go to work, come home, make dinner. You have a family, or maybe you don't have a family. The LGBT community in Louisiana and New Orleans as well represents the diversity of our state just as everybody else does. And they take on professions across the board. They face undue discrimination in the law and in the civil processes that we have here in Louisiana, much more than you would find in states that are like New York or California. You can be fired for your sexual orientation. You could be denied housing if you're transgender. So marriage equality is obviously just one aspect that we look at, and Forum for Equality ourselves as a plaintiff in the case that we've brought forward that's now pending in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And then obviously the Supreme Court will be hearing the cases at the end of April and then making a decision in June on the ultimate decision for marriage equality across the country.
But now these same-sex couples whom you have gotten to know, are they generally open about it, or are they trying, do they try to conceal it to preserve, whatever civility there may be? Do they live in ordinary neighborhoods, and how do their neighbors react to it? I'm trying to get a feeling for the lifestyle of these people. Do they all live in the French Quarter, or what sort of life do these couples have in spite of the fact they don't have the legality?
Well, I mean, like I said, they're just like everyday couples. There's no difference between the fact that their sexual orientation is different than maybe yours or yours. They have homes, they live in condos, they live in an apartment, they have children, they don't have children, some have pets, some don't. I mean, some live in the French Quarter, some live uptown, some are doctors, some are teachers. So there's not really any lifestyle that's different than what you and your wife may have. I think
Yes.
that that's one of the misconceptions that people have, is that maybe same-sex couples live different or extraordinary lives that are so divergent from what a man and a woman might have. Obviously, everybody's relationship and life is different, no matter your sexual orientation. I think that maybe it's somewhat mystified because in Louisiana, there are circumstances that people aren't able to be free and open with whom they love because they are discriminated against, because they could lose their job or they could be evicted from their apartment. So I think the big concern is not necessarily what is their lifestyle, but what legal issues they have to overcome to be able to live free and open within society.
I understand the legal problem, but for instance, are they accepted at their places of employment, or are they just considered outsiders? Or how, aside from legality, how much of a customary life do they have?
I mean, I would say that in most circumstances, you're going to find that they live a life that's just like everybody else, because they're people like everybody else.
That is true.
I think that what the circumstances that surround them are based on what other people's beliefs are, not what their internal beliefs are. If someone has an issue with their sexual orientation, sometimes those are issues that are able to overcome because they're their coworker, and then they get to know that this man that I sit next to at the call center is just like me. He just happens to be gay. There's no there's no barrier that's, separating them at that point. They get to know that person as a human and then realize that it's their own internal misconceptions and discrimination that has been held against a group of people. And so when someone's in their place of faith, in their workplace, they have an opportunity to talk about their sexual orientation or their gender identity and be able to break down those barriers that have consistently held them in closets for decades.
Yes, well, of course, there is still within the society many people who are anti-homosexual, aside from being same-sex marriage, and it's not too different from our situation as atheists. There are a lot of people in the society who we don't even want them to know, including in many cases our family, because you get rejected. And I think I just think the same thing applies for homosexuality. All right. Well, now you know who these people are we're talking about, and you're talking about. And what I read in the newspaper was that you just don't somehow or other think same-sex marriage is right. Tell us more about where that opinion comes from.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I appreciate being able to dialogue. Let me tell you a little bit about my own experience and interaction, because a lot of times when people have questions about my position and what might be called conservative Christianity, a lot of times they look and say, well, you just don't have exposure to gays, or you don't have friends that are gays. And actually I have a lot of acquaintances that are homosexual. They identify as homosexual or gay. So serving in the military as well, even before it was quote-unquote legal for them to serve, I knew quite a few and then talked to quite a few. In our own church family, we have those who identify as homosexual that are a part of our church family that identify as homosexual. The difference, of course, would be that they are trying to overcome in their own lifestyle some of those things that they want to change. Others may not agree with that, but in our family and our church context, that's what we teach. And so they identify that way, they are struggling over that, and they want to change. So the exposure to it, I believe, in society is that we're kind of dealing with two different realms. On the one side, of course, there's the church realm, and on the other side, there's the wider society. Of course, my convictions are, first of all, informed by religious belief, which I understand that not everyone holds to. We do live in a pluralistic society, and,
yes,
and we acknowledge that. And we have to understand and work on ways to be able to live together. On the other side of it, though, is a societal influence. So even though I don't mind talking about my religious concerns, of course that's fed by the Bible because I'm a Christian. On the other side of it, though, I do have societal concerns because I believe that even for non-religious reasons that there are concerns out there for granting homosexual couples a marriage right or a civil partnership. I'll go ahead and say for the record, I'm not opposed to, actually, let me rephrase that. I am opposed to any type of discrimination that may be out there based upon what I would call basic rights of being able to live a life. I don't think anyone should be fired or discriminated against in their job because of their sexual orientation. I actually think homosexuals can serve in the military, just in the same way that I don't think a heterosexual's sexuality should interfere with mission. Same thing for a homosexual. That should not interfere with mission. So it doesn't matter what the orientation is. If it interferes with mission, then that's when it becomes a problem. So I don't mind if homosexuals serve in the military. In fact, I served with quite a few that would identify that way when I was in Iraq. And I tell you, there was really no difference between them and any other soldier. So basic rights such as that, I have no problem with, and I don't think it should be discriminated against.
I don't know about your particular religion or your church, but generally, aren't there religious oppositions to the homosexual lifestyle,
oh, yes,
saying that the Bible says that this is a sin? How do you work with that? Yeah,
so I do believe it's a sin based upon my religious beliefs. And And I believe that the act of homosexuality in and of itself, along with the inclinations toward that, would be what we would label as sinful, yes. But just because we believe it's sinful, that does not necessarily mean that I have to discriminate against someone from just simply living a life. For example, I'm not going to discriminate against them from just living next door to me just because of that.
But
so,
is it your opinion that people living these sinful lives who do not, even till the time of their death, do not change their view, that they're going to go to hell?
Yes. However, the issue is not their, at least in my religious belief, from what I teach and based upon the Bible, the issue is not their behavior per se. It's a relationship with Jesus Christ. So I do believe a person can identify as being homosexual and have a relationship with Jesus Christ and go to heaven. However, they also acknowledge that the sin that they have in their life must be taken care of. But it's also the same.
What does that mean, be taken care of?
Well, hold on. I'll get to that. But it's also the same as in, say, a man and a woman who are in a heterosexual relationship.
Yeah.
If this man is in an adulterous affair that is being unfaithful in marriage, he needs to take care of that. And when I say take care of that, I mean get rid of it, make sure that he's not falling into that sin, and being able to live a holy biblical lifestyle.
Let me ask you.
It's not so much, one more thing real quick. It's not so much what we're against in that way, but it's that we're for very much a biblical concept of both marriage and family.
You're saying an adulterer has to give up his adultery in order to be forgiven. Are you saying a homosexual has to give up his homosexuality in order to qualify for redemption?
No. He does have to give up his homosexuality to be forgiven, but he does not have to give it up in order to get to heaven, because according to my theological beliefs, getting to heaven is not based upon our behavior, it's based upon a relationship with Jesus Christ.
You're suggesting that there are homosexuals in heaven?
Yeah. Just like there are adulterers, just like there are pornographers. But the point is...
But if you accept Jesus Christ before you die, then you can make it upstairs.
Sure.
You can live that whatever sinful life you want till the last day, and if on the last day you accept Jesus, you're okay.
No.
So, explain that.
Yeah. Well, and here's the wonderful news of the gospel as we preach it, and that is that the blood of Jesus Christ, because He died on the cross for us, saves us. And if I place my faith and my trust in Him, then I'm going to be saved. Now, because of that, He does want me to transform my life based upon the grace that He gives me. But the actions I do here on earth, those do not qualify me for anything in heaven. It's only because of my belief in Jesus Christ.
Let me be sure I'm still understanding what you're saying.
Sure.
It is through Jesus that you can go to heaven. What about all the other religions? What about Islam and the Hebrews? They don't get to go?
Well, so I could do another 30-minute segment on that. So if you want to, we can do it, even though that's not the main point of what we're doing.
But I have to understand where your position.
I'm not ashamed of saying that yes, I believe that Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven.
Okay.
But at the same time, we also have to understand how much grace that God gives us in being able to pursue Him, and that He gives us in being able to be saved.
All right.
So for our topic right now, yes, it is that a person can identify as being a homosexual, but that behavior or not is not going to get them into heaven or not. The full, I believe the biblical picture is that it's according to our belief in Jesus Christ. Now, if we believe in Jesus Christ, His teachings, I believe, will allow us and make us want to transform our lives to take care of those types of issues in our lives, such as homosexuality, adultery, anything else that comes along.
Well, I do understand that in the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." Where does it say, "Thou shalt not commit homosexuality"?
It's actually all throughout the Bible. There are several Old Testament references. There are a couple of New Testament references with St. Paul in Romans in chapter 2. Many people come to Jesus and they say, well, Jesus never mentioned it. And actually, there's a lot of strong evidence for what Jesus was actually teaching. Anytime that He taught on marriage, He never mentioned a homosexual relationship. It was always between a man and a woman. Also, in that culture, in that day and time, if a rabbi which Jesus would have been considered a rabbi.
Yes.
If a rabbi agreed with the law that had been passed on for generations to the Jews, then they would not necessarily mention, oh, I disagree with this per se. If they did disagree with it, they would give a new teaching on it. So the fact that Jesus is actually somewhat silent just specifically on homosexuality itself shows that he was in agreement with the entire Old Testament law.
Of course, there are some suggestions that Jesus was homosexual also. But Sarah Jane, you've heard all of that. What do you take from all of this?
And by the way, I haven't even given my arguments about society yet, so that's a
all right. Well, we'll have a little time.
First off, I'm adamantly opposed of people saying that people in the LGBT community identify as homosexual. That is an orientation. It is not an identification. So when we talk about people in these conversations, they're gay. They're not a homosexual. Their orientation is homosexuality. I'm not here to debate religion. I don't believe that religion has should be inserted in these discussions because these are civil issues. So I'm more than happy to hear about your opinions on that. But in terms of religion taking a position on if Jesus said this or did not, there is academic and theological conversations that happen about that specifically, that there are many Christians that adamantly disagree with what he's saying. So, in terms of looking at this as a lifestyle, it's not, it's an orientation. And so when we look at how the LGBT community in general is treated within society, discriminated against in basic situations such as housing or employment, marriage is included in that in a huge sum, right? So this is not just about two people who love each other, but it is about their families, it's about their children, it's being denied access to health coverage, it's being denied access to the estates in which they should be given at the time of someone's death. So it is about love, and it's about two people who love each other adamantly and with their heart and are part of a family and should not be denied because you believe one way, that access through civil government. But it also impacts everybody else around them, and it impacts the community. And it's devastating that some person has an opinion based in religion that should impact other people so wholeheartedly. And we've seen this throughout history and the changes that have come with it. And it's time that history be updated and modernized to accommodate for the love and respect that these families deserve.
As other changes have taken place through history, and this is one whose and the movement appears to be there, isn't it, Sarah Jane? Don't we see that this is probably moving into the direction of more acceptance of lifestyles?
I think that people are coming to understand that it's not a lifestyle, that it is just life, and these are families that deserve to be recognized within civil society. Now, we're not saying that his church and his beliefs have to recognize that. He doesn't have to marry a same-sex couple because his religion doesn't believe in that. So we're not impeding on his faith to be able to have the principles and beliefs which are the pillars of what his faith is. We're not telling the Catholic Church that the Pope has to make a decree. What we're saying is that the faiths that do believe in same-sex marriage are allowed to practice their faith underneath the law, and as well as civil society be able to provide those benefits to the same-sex couples should they get married by a judge or in a courtroom.
Right.
So it's very different.
A marriage license is issued by the government, not by the church.
Absolutely.
And you can be married without ever going to a church to be married, and there's nothing in the law where same-sex marriage has been legalized that says any church has to perform the ceremony. You don't have to go to church to be legally married. I just want to mention a couple of things. The newspaper article that brought my attention to you quoted you as saying, "It always comes back to the natural order of things. Even if you take God out of the picture," Brooks said, It comes back to a male and female coming together to create a child. Further on, they quote you as saying, "I think it is a mistake, and it won't be some years until we know what the impact will be." You're saying that if a couple is not, if their intention is not to create children, then it shouldn't be a marriage. Is that what you're saying?
No, not necessarily. And this is where it gets out of the realm of religion and into what I think you can do is take God and religion out of the argument and still arrive at similar conclusions. This is the way my argument goes. If we simply look at the way that nature has created us with male and female genitalia, that's what I mean by the natural order of things. So that speaks of heterosexual relationships. And so a society is being based upon the propagation of children and heterosexual relationships. And I have to admit, my wife and I, we cannot have children, and so we have gone and we have adopted children. We felt like we wanted to open up our home, and so we've adopted children even into our own home. But the point is, my argument is still consistent because we are still a man and a woman in a marriage relationship, bringing children into our home to give them a loving place. And I'll admit, that's not to say that even in a homosexual couple and their relationship that they can't offer nearly the same thing as that. For sure, they can. A single parent can also offer a loving home. But this is where I'm getting back to what I said earlier, that my argument is that the ultimate ideal should be a man and a woman in a marriage being able to raise children.
All right, but you say it's the natural order of things for a man and a woman. Well, in nature, in evolution, homosexuals are natural. They're born that way. Why is it natural to be heterosexual and unnatural to be homosexual?
Well, for one thing, we see the propagation of species is based upon heterosexuality, not homosexuality.
Well, who says that that's a natural aim? What if we don't propagate the species?
Oh, that's fine. I mean, humanity can run out after 3 generations, sure.
Well, it could.
But the point is that within that natural order, that is what we have. And I think this is where the state interest comes in the granting of marriage licenses, is being able to establish the family as a cornerstone of society. And if I can, by the way...
We got a couple of minutes.
Okay, so I'll give this real quick. If we're talking about the natural order of things, just recently we've now just had time to be able to study children being brought up in homosexual homes. The British Journal of Education Society and Behavioral Science finally completed a study of that, and they found major significant behavioral issues with children who are raised in same-sex couple homes. So I think there's a lot of scientific evidence out there that shows the point.
I hate to say this, and I'm Sarah Jane, I'd give you a chance to say anything more, but our time is up. Thank you both for being here.